What's up, guys? It's Dan from Crypto Camacho. And guys, there's something that I've wanted to address now for at least a few days, probably a week or more. So there's this big debate right now going on about whether Bitcoin should, or shouldn't be compatible with law, right? Compatible with governments, with regulatory agencies like the SEC, with banks, with third-party institutions that are essentially oversight or regulatory institutions today. There's a lot of debate of whether or not Bitcoin should be compatible and abide by these types of laws and regulations that exist in our society, right? And so I've been looking through Vin Armani's tweets, and I am a fan of Vin, and I don't mean any disrespect to Vin at all. I like his work. I love Cointext. I think what he does is great to promote and help the crypto industry. But I want to kind of ask him, or ask those out there that may support his views, to help me understand kind of the position of Bitcoin cannot be compatible with laws. And so in the past, like a year and a half ago, when I first started getting into cryptocurrency, it was very attractive to me that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies could be used to subvert governments, to subvert kind of the banking industry or banks altogether, could subvert these third-party regulatory institutions or services that we now use in our society, like mortgage companies, title companies, things like that, right? And I used to think, wow, crypto is insane. It's going to completely subvert people from the need to use these institutions like banks and things like that, right? Governments. And it's going to give the power to the people to basically opt out of the systems that governments create, right? I thought that was really what Bitcoin was about. I thought really that's what the dream was, right? To create this kind of anarchist utopian society where government has very minimal role, if any role whatsoever, right? That central banking and the bank industry doesn't really exist at all, at least the way we know it. And I thought, this is great. Everything's going to be put on the blockchain. There's going to be this currency that we can use. And if we don't want to use the fiat currency, we could just opt out and we could just go on our merry way and use the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency system rather than the fiat system, right? And as I've gone through the crypto kind of world and grown up and learned about the cryptocurrency space and blockchain and what it is and how it functions, and I've seen these hard forks and I've seen these hash wars and I've seen all this stuff going on. I've been a trader. I've been, all these different things going on. My views on that are somewhat changing because I read this tweet from Vin. It says Satoshi did not create Bitcoin to be compatible with law. That's a dangerous new narrative. Satoshi created Bitcoin so as to be exempt from law. His greatest fear was that the state would find an excuse to regulate Bitcoin. And then it says, do your own research, right? And he goes on in other tweets to say, ask yourself, does someone who considers the state to be a nest of hornets sound like someone who is government friendly? And okay, he's responding to a tweet that Craig Wright made. And then he goes on, the fact that I don't want the state involved with Bitcoin doesn't make me an anti-government any more than not wanting a hungry tiger roaming around in my home makes me anti-tiger, right? So the problem here is that yes, in a utopian society, in a perfect society, I would love it if the state and other kind of banking interest actors did not get involved with cryptocurrency at all, right? I would love it if the financial industry and the financial institutions didn't get involved at all. And they just said, hey, build your technology, go on your merry way, build your world currency, whatever. The reality is it's not going to work like that. The reality is that's not going to work at all, right? I mean, these governments, these banks, these rulers, these powerful people, one, are not going to just let their governments kind of go away and go into oblivion because cryptocurrency is kind of creeping up and it's a technology they can't stop, right? So I went on and I responded to Vin in this tweet storm, which if you're watching this, Vin, I did tweet you like 20 times or 13 times, something like that. So apologies, but I want your opinion or the opinion of others out there that may have similar views because I'm genuinely curious how you think this could work, right? How is it possible that Bitcoin and or any cryptocurrency is to flourish and become a worldwide adopted currency or a worldwide adopted technology at all if governments, big enterprises, banks, monetary interests, financial institutions are not behind it, right? They have to be behind it. And in order for them to be behind it, Bitcoin needs to follow a set of regulations or laws or standards that are set by these governments and banks and monetary interests that have big interests, right? Multi-trillion dollar interests. It needs to be Bitcoin crypto, and it needs to be sanctioned and at least not maybe endorsed, but at least sanctioned by these institutions, or there's no way it will ever become mass adopted like everybody wants. And we'll never see crypto at the scale we want if governments and other agencies and whatnot are not behind and sanction it, right? It's just not going to happen. I mean, they're not going to idly sit by and let crypto just take over the world while they just sit by and watch their governments and banks and financial interests crumble. It's just not going to happen. So I responded to Vin and I said, now, Vin, how in the world would Bitcoin ever be fully integrated into society at mass scale without at least the blessing of the government? Like it or not, we live in a governed world and have supposed rulers. We have rulers, whether we like it or not. They come in the form of enterprise leaders. Look at Google, look at Facebook, look at Amazon, look at all these big tech companies. They have power over our lives, guys. And now look at governments, the presidents, the Senate, the Congress, whatever, the judicial system has power over our lives and makes the laws to which we need to abide by or go to jail. We can't just not pay taxes. We will get in trouble, right? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I used to think that this is what Bitcoin was all about, subverting third parties, banks, and governments. And that would be an awesome utopia, really. Like, wow, do I even need to pay taxes? However, that is not a reality. I don't think it will ever be. We have seen over the last 10 years that Bitcoin, although Bitcoin has survived, it has not thrived. It has largely remained a hobby to developers, traders, speculators, and technology enthusiasts, right? So this is a very, very good point and valid point that I think everybody needs to really consider. Yes, Bitcoin has survived in the last 10 years. Bitcoin has not gone away. The governments, the banks, money and power have not been able to fully corrupt Bitcoin. They have not been able to remove it from the face of the earth, right? They can't stop blockchain, right? I get that, and I know that, blockchain will never be stopped. The technology is out of the box, right? We've opened Pandora's box. It's not going away. It will be used, right? The big question is how relevant is it going to become? How relevant is Bitcoin going to become in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, right? And I can tell you right now from experience, firsthand experience, in the last 10 years, yes, Bitcoin has survived, but it has not thrived. It is definitely not in the mainstream of people, right? I could count on my hand. I mean, there's 20 people I can name off the top of my head that know about crypto, know about Bitcoin, but they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because there's scams, because it's not regulated, because the government doesn't sanction it, because banks don't sanction it, because it's risky, because there's no good UI interfaces to interact with it, because it's a very tech-heavy hobby, really, that you need to know how to do, and most people don't know how to get into the tech, right? So yes, it may survive without government, without being compatible to law, but it will not thrive. It will not explode. It will not gain mass adoption without it, right? Number four, why? It lacks endorsement from enterprise and governments, among other technical challenges. The folks that can actually make it scale, governments, banks, monetary institutions can actually make Bitcoin and or another cryptocurrency scale if they want to, right? But it has to fall within their jurisdictions, okay? Next. Now, I don't know what Satoshi's original intent was, but do you legitimately think governments are going to continually allow crypto to push them into oblivion? Not a chance, right? That's what I mentioned earlier. Next, if compatible with law, it will eventually become irrelevant, though it may still exist, okay? So let's take an example. And the next thing I tweet, for example, look at BitTorrent. Although a very widespread and used network to pirate, copyright books, music, software, whatever, it is not mainstream. No matter how many techies out there want to say that BitTorrent is mainstream, it is not mainstream, guys. It is definitely not mainstream. It is primarily used by techies, not mainstream folks. Think of your mom, right? Like your mom trying to get a song or the latest messaging app on BitTorrent. It's just not going to happen, right? Although it exists and continues to survive, it is not shut down by the government. It is largely irrelevant to the main or mass population, right? So yes, BitTorrent is used to download and take copyrighted materials, software, books, music, other materials, right? BitTorrent has been around for a long time. It came from the fact that the governments were trying to shut down Napster and these other kind of music and file sharing services, LimeWire, Kazaa. Now BitTorrent kind of has come out, right? And governments cannot stop BitTorrent, right? BitTorrent is on millions of nodes around the world, and it can't really be stopped by the governments, right? but it is not mainstream. And that is because people are scared to download copyrighted and privated content, right? People are scared that governments will come after them. People are scared because it's unregulated. People are scared because they might get viruses on their computer. I can tell you that my friends, a lot of them know about BitTorrent. Many of them won't use it. I can tell you my sisters, my parents, they will never use BitTorrent. It's too complicated for them. It's for techies, guys. It's for hobbyists. It's technology enthusiasts, right? And that is why it has never gained mass adoption and never will. Bitcoin may survive, but it will never gain mass adoption unless it is at least sanctioned to some degree by the governments, by the SEC, by financial institutions. It's very obvious. It's very clear that this has already happened leading up to today, right? In the last 10 years of Bitcoin, that is actually what has happened. Next, the same is true of Bitcoin and will remain this way until legitimized by authorities. Sad to say it, but this is how many people in the world think, right? They don't have the technical know-how, nor do they have the courage to engage in shady territory not sanctioned by government and or perceived as legitimate by leading authorities. How many times have you heard leading authorities say Bitcoin is a scam? How many times have you heard Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jamie Dimon? I could go on and on and on. The authorities are not legitimizing the cryptocurrency for a reason, right? Okay, next, just anyone outside of the crypto space. Okay, just ask anyone outside of the crypto space, like ordinary folks, not folks that are OCD crypto fanatics like me, right? Most will not touch crypto because of this exact thing I have explained. Many, many more people than you think fall into this camp. They want authoritative legitimization. They want protection from scams. They want regulations and think that they are overall good. Who wants anarchy? The majority do not, and this seems pretty self-evident, right? And then I go on to say that I respect his perspective and I want to get his thoughts and curious what he thinks, right? I haven't gotten any response yet, but I am hopeful that he's going to respond to me because I'm very, very curious about his thoughts on this and how realistically Bitcoin would scale without governments, right? In an anarchist type of mentality. Like it's just not going to happen, at least in my opinion. And I used to think it could happen. And now I've really come kind of full circle around this because I just think there'll be too many impediments and too many roadblocks. And it may still exist, but it won't be mass adopted. It'll be a hobby for techies, right? Just like BitTorrent is today, okay? People want authoritative legitimization no matter what it is. They want somebody who they think is smarter than them to come along and say, yes, I have looked at this. This is safe for you to use. I bless it. You can use it. You are not going to get in trouble at all, and you're not going to get scammed. That is what people want, guys. Today, that is not what crypto gives at all. That is not what Bitcoin gives at all. That is partly why I am very interested to see what the Bitcoin SV camp does, because they are going down that path. XRP is going down that path. Stellar Lumens is going down that path, right? All the main and popular Ethereum cryptocurrencies that are serious are going down the path of packaging up their messaging, their branding, their purpose in a much more professional way, a much more professional and serious way that speaks to folks like the government, like enterprise businesses, like people that can actually make this stuff be adopted, guys. That's my rant. Let me know what you think. I would love to know. And Vin, if you're watching this, I would love to talk to you about this sometime on my show, or I'd love to just get your thoughts on it because I think you're a smart dude and I think you could bring value to this conversation. And I'm genuinely curious how you think it could scale without some of the help from some of these institutions. See you later, guys. Have fun and enjoy.